Hi there. I'm Kobe, a fitness and nutrition coach, especially for women in their 40s and beyond, to help mitigate perimenopause symptoms and have the strongest, most efficient, and well feeling body that we can in this stage of life. Today, I want to break it down to the basics. I want to bring it back to the foundation of what is perimenopause. It's a word that maybe you've heard a lot of times, maybe you've just started hearing it, but I want to actually talk today about what it is. We know the word menopause, we've heard that word a lot, and there's a bit of a misconception around what menopause actually is. So when you hear about all sorts of menopause symptoms and how challenging that time can be, it's actually more the perimenopause timeframe that we're hearing about. And menopause just refers to that one moment in time when we change from having a regular cycle throughout our pre-menopausal years into having no cycle at all, which is our postmenopausal years. That time about 4 to 10 years before the menopause transition, the menopause point in time, is called perimenopause. And that is when most women feel their most impactful symptoms. So today we're going to talk about what that looks like, why that's happening, and then specifically talk about your most impactful symptoms, and then make an action plan on what we can do about that. How you can feel your strongest, your most well. We all go through this time in our lives, usually sometime around the 40s, early 50s, but it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be so challenging, and it doesn't have to be something that we dread, even though there is a natural transitionary point that we all have to go through. So today we're going to focus on these specific topics. What is perimenopause? What happens in the body during the perimenopause? What are the most common symptoms? What are key hormones that are involved here? What does hormone balance versus imbalance look like and feel like? And then we're going to discover your 3 most impactful symptoms and set your personal perimenopause plan of attack. So this matters because without understanding these changes, perimenopause can feel confusing and unpredictable. You might think your symptoms are random or something that you just have to deal with. That is common before we find out that that's not actually true. What used to work for your body stops working and it leaves you feeling frustrated. With the right knowledge and approach, you can understand what's happening in your body. You can adjust your nutrition, lifestyle, and habits to work with your hormones instead of against them. And you can feel in control rather than overwhelmed. So our hormones are changing. And so far, it feels potentially pretty confusing depending where you are in this stage and potentially quite frustrating and overwhelming. So perimenopause isn't just a phase, it's actually our body signaling that it needs a new kind of support. This isn't about something being wrong with you. It's about understanding what's happening so you can work with your body and not against it. Your symptoms aren't random. They are a direct result of the hormone shifts that are happening within you. So what used to work in our 20s and in our 30s might not work anymore, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do. It just means we need to shift our approach. Perimenopause is the transitional phase leading up to menopause, as I was talking about before. It typically begins in our 40s, but can start in our late 30s. And for some women, it can start late 40s. It really depends. It's a really unique journey for everybody. Some women, it lasts for 4 to 10 years, but it can be shorter or it can be longer depending on the individual. The body begins to shift from our reproductive years towards our post-reproductive years. And now that we're living longer, we want to make sure that our post-reproductive years actually feel the strongest, most independent, and most capable that we can. Unlike popular belief, perimenopause isn't a steady decline in hormones. It's characterized by erratic fluctuations, with estrogen sometimes spiking higher than ever before and then dropping, creating what can feel like a hormonal roller coaster. During perimenopause, hormone levels, particularly estrogen and progesterone, begin to fluctuate unpredictably rather than following the predictable monthly pattern that we used to be familiar with. Some months we have high estrogen, and other months we have very low estrogen in relation to progesterone. Think of hormones like a roller coaster. These ups and downs create symptoms that can change month to month. Many women find this phase more challenging than actual menopause itself because of the unpredictable nature of the hormonal changes. It's important to know here that every woman's experience is unique, but there are some foundations that we can look at. So how do you know you're actually in perimenopause? It's generally been known as the time where things are different, quote unquote, things are different. So what does that actually mean? Menstrual cycles become more irregular, maybe shorter or longer, heavier or lighter. There's two phases in perimenopause. There's early perimenopause, where the cycle length can vary greater or less than 7 days from what you have been experiencing before. And then there's late perimenopause, where you could have 2 or more skipped cycles. The actual point of menopause that I was talking about before is characterized by having gone for 12 consecutive months with having no period at all. That means that menopause has been achieved and you're heading into postmenopause. So if you look at the chart down here at the bottom, it kind of shows us the hormone fluctuations in each of those 3 stages. So pre-menopause, each one of these depicts a month cycle. So you can see there's pretty predictable hormone increases and decreases throughout each month. Then we get to the perimenopause block in the middle, and there's that roller coaster effect that we were noticing before. Hormones are going all over the place. So we've got the estrogen, which is the green one, up and down and high and low and all over the place. We've got progesterone that makes a steady decline throughout this time. And then we have FSH and LH in here as well. So things are all over the place. We get into postmenopause, which is the last block here, and we can see that the green line, which is the estrogen, and the pink line, which is the progesterone, have a pretty steady, low level consistently. Same with the FSH and the LH, the lines become pretty consistent. So once we can achieve that postmenopausal state, things will feel a lot more stable. Different than your premenopause years, but much more stable in contrast to the roller coaster effect that the perimenopause felt like. So some common symptoms of perimenopause include physical sensations like hot flashes, night sweats, and irregular periods, sleep and energy like insomnia, fatigue, and energy dips, mood and brain symptoms like anxiety, irritability, brain fog, memory lapses. We've got weight and metabolism symptoms, changes in metabolism, fat distribution, weight gain, cravings, how the body processes carbohydrates often occur as well. There's heart and bones symptoms, so increased risk of osteoporosis and heart disease, and then urinary and sexual health symptoms, which include vaginal dryness, decreased libido, and urinary urgency. And there's not to say that every woman experiences every single one of these. That's actually very uncommon to feel every single one, but there is quite a range of things that you could feel along the way. Most women experience some of these changes, but not all of them. So your experience will be as unique as you are. Understanding these common patterns helps you recognize what's normal for you, but also your personal journey may include some of these symptoms, and we're going to identify what those are for you so that you can help make some positive changes for yourself and this transition time. So let's understand what the hormones are and what they're doing in perimenopause in particular. So hormones control more than just our cycle. They impact everything from metabolism to mood, energy, sleep, and brain function, as we can tell by the symptoms that we were talking about on the previous slide here. And the picture at the bottom depicts a symphony. And this is because all of these hormones work together as an individual piece of the symphony, but they create hopefully some lovely music together, especially when they're in balance. We'll talk a little bit more about what that balance looks like when we look into the oat axis coming up. But when everybody's got their piece of the symphony that they're playing and everything sounds in tune and connecting with each other, it's going to be a lot smoother along the way. Perimenopause isn't just about estrogen surging or dropping, it's about how all of these hormones shift and interact. Understanding your hormones will help you recognize why you're experiencing certain symptoms and what you can do to support your body. The better you understand these changes, the more empowered you'll be to navigate this transition with confidence. So why do hormones matter so much? Hormones are chemical messengers in the body and they influence so much. There's certain ones that are associated with perimenopause, but of course our body produces a multitude of other hormones that we're not going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the 6 key players in perimenopause. Hormones are influencing our metabolism and our weight, our energy levels, our mood and brain function, our sleep and recovery, our hunger cravings. And when your hormones are shifting, then your body is too. So that's why what worked for you in the past might not feel like it works so well anymore. So let's meet the 6 main hormones of perimenopause. We've got estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid, insulin, and testosterone. Yes, I know we associate testosterone with males, but females produce some testosterone, especially in their premenopausal years as well. So mostly we'll hear about estrogen and progesterone when we're discussing perimenopause, but there are actually 6 of them that interact with each other in this symphony that we talked about earlier. So we're going to talk now about how they interact during perimenopause, what happens when they're imbalanced, and then why the symptoms happen. Estrogen is known as the vibrancy hormone. It affects our brain, our energy, our bones, heart health, skin, mood, sexual health, and emotional well-being. Progesterone is the chill hormone. It impacts our mood, have easier and lighter periods, temperature regulation, and sleep, and it's the natural balancer of estrogen. Cortisol is our stress or our survivor hormone. It affects sleep, energy, stress response, our sleep-wake cycle, and our blood sugar. Then there's thyroid, which is our regulator hormones. The thyroid produces a few different hormones, so that's why that's plural there. Thyroid impacts almost every single system in the body, but when it comes to perimenopause, we're talking about metabolism, energy, muscle support, and digestive regularity. Then we've got insulin, which is our blood sugar balance or our storage hormone. Insulin manages energy from food, influences weight and fat storage, balances blood sugar, affects metabolism, controls hunger and cravings. And then testosterone, which is the builder, helps us feel energetic, strong, confident, and passionate, and it impacts our muscles, bones, and mood also. So our hormones matter in perimenopause, but how they work together matters even more. And this is where we're going to talk about something called the OAT axis. So OAT, O stands for ovaries, A for adrenals, and T for thyroid. The ovarian, adrenal, thyroid, the OAT axis, is the hormonal control system that influences how your body adapts to perimenopause. These 3 systems work as a team to regulate metabolism and weight, energy and fatigue, mood and stress resilience, sleep and recovery, cravings, and blood sugar balance. When this OAT axis is in balance, we feel energized, clear-headed, strong, and resilient. When it's out of balance, we might feel more tired or moody, overwhelmed, gaining weight, and craving sugar. So as we remember, perimenopause isn't just about estrogen and progesterone, which is the ovary portion of this OAT axis. Our stress levels, which is the adrenal portion, and our metabolism, which is the thyroid portion, also impact how we feel. So if one of these systems is out of balance, the others will try to compensate, often leading to worsening symptoms like weight gain, mood swings, and poor sleep or low energy. So here is what it can look like. The ovaries are struggling. They're working to produce estrogen and progesterone more because of this fluctuation that naturally is occurring, which means that we could be experiencing hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, weight gain, bloating, and breast tenderness. And then the adrenals are overworked, meaning high cortisol from stress, which increases belly fat and sugar cravings, creating that wired but tired feeling, which creates trouble sleeping, but still tired. Also anxiety, irritability, and energy crashes. And then the thyroid portion is the thyroid becomes sluggish. So we've got low thyroid function, which creates slower metabolism, stubborn weight gain, brain fog, fatigue, hair thinning, even feeling cold and having sluggish digestion, which translates to constipation. So as I mentioned before, not all women experience perimenopause in the same way. Your unique OAT axis, so how your ovaries, adrenals, and thyroid work together, determines which symptoms you'll experience and how intensely you feel them. This is why some women struggle more with weight gain, while others are experiencing more mood swings or extreme fatigue. But don't worry, because they can all be supported. So let's create a little personalization here. This is where we're going to look at your symptoms and create your perimenopausal plan of attack. So now that we understand what's happening in the body, we understand what the hormones are and how that they relate to each other, it's time to make it personal to you. So as we mentioned, perimenopause isn't a one size fits all. Everyone experiences it differently. And that's why we're going to create a plan that works for you. So at the moment, I'm doing the perimenopause reset program, and this is a piece of that. But I thought it would be useful to take the symptoms portion, which is where we're starting in the program, to take that portion and give it to you so that you could identify what your symptoms are, and then potentially go back to some previous videos of mine, some of my nutrition and fitness videos that will help you create that plan of attack for yourself. So here we're going to identify your symptoms, so pinpoint the top 3 that are affecting your life, and then you can use what you've learned through either research or through my other videos to establish a plan for yourself. So just to reiterate that our perimenopause symptoms are actually our body's clues to us. So when we're experiencing these symptoms, it means that something in the OAT axis is out of balance. Perimenopause symptoms aren't random. They're signals from your body telling you where it needs the most support. So it's time to focus on helping you feel better, working with your hormones, not against them. So let's identify the top 3 symptoms. So feel free to pause on here or take a screenshot or take a picture, maybe even write it down. If you want to pause, you can use a pen and paper to write this down. But this is where you're going to do your current symptoms assessment. So your instructions here, underneath the symptoms checklist, you'll see the different categories that we talked about before: the physical, the sleep and energy, mood and brain function, weight and metabolism, and sexual health. So review all the symptoms below, circle ones that you've experienced in the past month. Because we looked at that roller coaster of what perimenopause looks like, it can change month to month, or it can change over the 3 months or 6 months, or it can change within each of those time periods. So circle any symptoms that you've experienced over the past month, and then rate the severity from 1 to 5, 1 being really mild and 5 being quite severe. And then from there, you can identify your top 3 most impactful symptoms. And that's where you can put your focus for the next, I'll say, 8 weeks. That's what our program is, 8 weeks. So you can do this with yourself based on your 3 most impactful symptoms over the next 8 weeks. Make some shifts to your lifestyle and to your different fitness and nutrition choices and see how those will be impacted. So feel free to pause on here if you want to go through the symptom checklist by writing it down. And if you're not pausing on here, if you're writing a picture or if you're taking a picture or a screenshot, then go ahead and do that. I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is our last one. So once you've completed the symptom assessment, you'll take a few minutes to reflect on what you've been experiencing, and then write down your top 3 biggest symptoms, so the ones that are impacting your daily life the very most. These will be your focus symptoms. So over the next 8 weeks, track your progress and work on some strategies to improve them. I talk about in a few of my different videos some fitness and nutrition foundations, and those would be some really excellent places to start with addressing the symptoms. So in a lot of my videos, I talk about creating a complete meal, so using all 3 macronutrients balanced together, and that will really help to regulate a lot of the symptoms that your body and your brain and your mood are experiencing, is just to balance those meals with those 3 macronutrients. Another thing I talk a lot about is strength training, so building muscles, especially if some of your most biggest impacted symptoms are your weight gain. and your metabolism, even sluggish energy. And I know when we have sluggish energy, working out isn't the top thing we want to go do, but even 10 minutes to start, 15 minutes to start is going to make a big difference. So if you're feeling extremely low energy, if you can just start with 10 or 15-minute walks in a regular schedule, so 2 or 3 times a week, that's going to really help you increase your energy. And then as your energy increases, you can increase the amount of time that you do your workout and the intensity that you do it. So to start, meet yourself where you're at. That's always what I like to recommend to my clients, is meet yourself where you're at. If we have these big, wild plans that aren't realistic for us in this moment, we might start strong, but they actually don't support us in the long term because they're not sustainable. So I like to say, meet yourself where you're at and then build from there. So whatever you happen to find out over the next 8 weeks that are going to support you, build from there. So start, create your foundation, and then build from there. So these symptoms, as you track them over the next 8 weeks, what's measured gets managed. Tracking your symptoms will help you to see what's working, and then you can adjust as needed. My last note here is that I want you to remember, I know I've said it already in this video, but remember that everyone's perimenopause experience is different, and I want you to personalize to your journey. So I want you to support yourself with what you need. And if something doesn't feel like it's working for you, give it some time. Give it a couple of weeks, maybe even give it 3 weeks. But if it feels like it's not working for you, and if it's just something you're supposed to do, scrap it. You know yourself the best. If it does not feel like it feels like it's working for you, or it feels like it's not helping you in some way, try a different something. I have a number of videos in my account here that you're welcome to go and peruse to help yourself create a foundation. My top 2, and I've already mentioned them, but my top 2 to start with are creating your meals as a complete in 3, so using protein, fiber, and fat at every single meal to balance out your meal, which will then balance out your hormones, and then bring in some movement, either daily walks, bi-daily walks, 2 times a week walks, or strength training. If you already are fairly mobile and you know that you can add strength training into your week, I recommend at least once, preferably twice, if possible 3 times. That's going to make a huge difference. I know we think of strength training as just building the muscle, but building muscle that's naturally declining as our hormones shift is going to be key. That muscle then translates to our bone density. So that means that we're going to have a capable physical body in our post-menopause phase, that we're able to be independent and strong and capable. And ultimately, that gives us freedom in our lives down the road. So start out 3 macronutrients at every single meal, strength training and or walking each day, and that is a beautiful foundation to help you balance your symptoms. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am happy to hear from you, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.